Well, I've been getting a ton of questions and comments ever since I posted the picture of me adjusting the baby the other day. I don't know if you guys saw that on our Facebook
You and
page,
who?
but
Oh,
I was
yes.
adjusting a baby on there, so it raised quite a lot of questions, and so I wanted to discuss that today. I've been getting a lot of comments and questions. People saying, "Is that really safe?" And how can you help a baby feel better? And
People sent me a message saying, "Is it real?
right,
Was the
right,
baby
was that
real?"
really happening? Yeah, and
No,
you
it was
know,
like they thought it was a doll,
oh,
like
yeah,
somebody a little thing you were
right.
practicing on.
Right, and
I'm
they'll
like,
say,
no.
how young is too young to work on, and I even get
What
some
were you
folks that
doing?
say,
Well, first off, what were you doing with the baby?
I was adjusting it, baby. Yeah, I was adjusting it. Yeah, like a
Oh,
spinal adjustment. Yeah.
okay.
And so, I even get some people say, how could you do that to that poor baby? Like I'm gonna do something to harm a
Right.
baby, I was
You
helping the
evil
yeah, I
man.
was helping the baby, But this week is Children's Health Week at Bright Wellness, and we're gonna highlight some issues that children and teens have problems with. And then also we want to highlight some of the amazing things that we can do to try to help them. And so that picture raised so many questions. I just thought people knew this stuff already, that our type of care, that the programs that we offer are great for kids too. And I
Well,
realized
people
after,
probably thought they're okay. Probably people probably think, I would imagine, they're okay for kids. But this was an infant.
yeah, it was a little tiny infant. And so I started talking to my patients about this, and I realized people just don't know this. And so I wanted to discuss really four main conditions today, and that's asthma, ear infections, allergies, and attention, like ADD, ADHD. And so we're going to break each one of these things down and talk about it today. And we'll discuss each one individually, but sometimes parents don't want to really admit that their kids' health is not that good. Um, we kind of want to see our kids as perfect, and we don't want to see, we kind of want to see their symptoms as normal. Children should not have symptoms, period. Children should not have asthma. They should not have allergies. They should not have headaches. They should not have body pains. Children should not have symptoms, and if they do, that is not normal. Parents write it off as maybe growing pains, or they'll reason away their symptoms. And for example, take allergies. Parents will want to say it's something outside of their kid's body causing it. My kid is sick because that pollen over there. It's that tree over there causing this. It's that it's that dog or that cat, or it's that grass causing this. It's
Those
not my
ligustrums.
Yeah, it's not my kid. It's that over there. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. I might say, well, my kid's over there and he's fine. So if it was that tree, everybody by that tree would have it. But it's not. There's something that your kid is getting that other kids are not. And so it's not outside of their body, it's inside their body that's malfunctioning.
Mhm.
And when you say that, people kind of look at you weird, but yeah, if it was the tree causing this, it would everybody that was by the tree would have it.
Right.
But it's not. And so it's something that inside their body that's detecting that tree is something that's bad for them, or is detecting that grass is something that is bad for them. So it's not the tree, it's the way their body is detecting that tree that's what's wrong. And or grass, and by the way, speaking of being allergic to things like this, am I the only one that thinks it's weird that humans would all of a sudden be allergic to so much stuff? I mean, especially stuff like grass and trees. I mean, we've been around grass since the hunter-gatherer days. We we've been around grass since the beginning of time. So why all of a sudden can we not be around grass? What is going on with that? And so our program doesn't really point fingers outside of the body. Our fingers turn around and point inside the body and say, what is going on inside us? That our bodies, our nervous system, and that our histamine system is all of a sudden so haywire that we can't be around cut grass. And so that's why our program is so effective. So the first thing that I wanted to address when we talk about kids is, are these treatments safe for children? Because I had a lot of people question that when I posted that picture, on Facebook of me adjusting the baby. It's like, how do you know that's safe? Well, first of all, my practice at one time was up to 20% pediatric. I had up to 20% children in my office at one time. And I first adjusted my son, I think he was about 7 hours old, the first time I adjusted my little boy. And so I had one baby not too long ago. Was He was 3 weeks premature, and he was 10 days old when I was treating him. So he wasn't even really supposed to be in the world yet, and I was adjusting him for some issues that he was having. So there's no really all of a sudden there's a set date, and of course, I mean we take precautions and we're real gentle, and there's a whole technique for working on kids. Um, but I wanted to go ahead and give you some research about if it's safe or not. I didn't want to just give you my opinion. So in 110 years of existence, there's now 30 million pediatric adjustments that take place every year, and there have been 9 cases of negative events in over 100 years. There's been 0 since 1992. So out of 30 million adjustments a year, there have been 0 problems since 1992. So you compare that to a needle stick, that's 100 times more dangerous having a needle stuck. Riding in a car is several hundred times more dangerous. Taking a bath is thousands of times more dangerous. And taking children's Tylenol or other medication is thousands and thousands and thousands of times more dangerous than getting an adjustment, statistically speaking. And so, of course, it's safe. And not to mention that when you trade off the amazing health benefits that kids get from working on their body and getting their body in good shape and balanced, and getting their insides working and getting everything balanced and normal. It's really remarkable. So 85% of parents reported improvement in their children's symptoms after receiving these kind of treatments. And that's a percentage unheard of with traditional treatments. I mean, with results from medication, 85% is unheard of. So 85% of parents reported that their child improved after they got adjusted for whatever reason. So it's very, very effective. And so when we get back, I'm going to discuss specifically ear infections, asthma, and ADD, and maybe allergies if we have time.
All right. Excellent. All right. Wellness Wednesday on KTD1. Doc's in with Bryant Wellness Institutes of Acadiana on Facebook, and you also have your private Facebook page too, right? Like Dr. Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're talking children's health this morning.
Yeah, and so Deb was asking me on the break, like, how do you evaluate a baby? How do you determine what's wrong? There's a whole protocol. I mean, there's a whole pediatric evaluation that we go through that was designed for babies. And so, this is a technique. It's something that we take seminars and classes on. And, there's a whole education process and a whole protocol that goes around working on children, and especially babies, because they can't really tell you what's wrong. So you have to go by your testing. You
your
have
12-year-old can say, "Mom, my
yeah,
back hurts."
Yeah, exactly. But or I get headaches, or I have postural problems, or whatever it is. And so with ear infections, so to just start off, to tell you about ear infections have risen 250% from 1975 to 1990. They've risen 250%. Now, traditional treatment for ear infections is either one of two things, either antibiotics or surgery. And antibiotics statistically might even make the situation worse. One study done by Bezakova, and listen, the reason I'm giving you the people who did this research on this today is because I don't want anybody sending me messages saying that I'm making this stuff up. And so I give you the person who did the research. I'm going to do that all day so that you can know that these are actually research studies. So Bezakova's studies found that ear infections returned 63% of the children treated with antibiotics and only 43% of the children that were not treated with antibiotics. So antibiotics for ear infections may not only help, but they may actually, in the long run, make them reoccur more often. And so what happens a lot of times is the bacteria get resistant to them, and that can make it worse. Compare that to the research that Sackett found, that adjusting and natural therapies like herbal drops in the ears, like we do in our office, found that the vast majority of the cases resolved completely within the first 10 days. And so just 10 days is all it really took to get the vast majority of those cases to resolve. Frohl's research showed that ear infections resolved in 93% of the children who followed our type of treatment. So the results are it's night and day compared to traditional treatment versus some of these, the herbal remedies and the adjusting and things that we do. So Fish did a study with 5 especially difficult cases of otitis media, and they all resolved with our type of treatment. And so really, really great results. And we do something called craniosacral therapy for that, along with herbal eardrops. And that's been shown to be the most effective treatment for kids with reoccurring ear infections or otitis media, and with almost no side effects at all. So amazing results with that. Ear infections are one of those things that just our type of treatment works really, really well for them in kids of all ages. Now, the little baby, Deb was asking me on the break, what was I treating the little baby that you saw in the in the post for, and that was for colic. The baby wasn't sleeping and was crying a
Oh,
lot.
where were you when Blake was born?
It's funny too because when the family first come in and the baby has colic, it's like the poor woman doesn't have her makeup on, and you can tell they haven't slept, and they're all
It's a
disheveled, and
mess.
they're a mess, and they come back in the next couple of days, and I almost don't recognize them, because they're all fixed up, and they're dressed up, and their makeup's on. They look like a different family, because they've actually been getting some sleep. So now listen, as far as asthma goes. Asthma is the most frequent cause of school absenteeism in children under 17.
Wow.
The rates of asthma have increased 300% in the last 20 years. Something is going on with this asthma and these ear infections and all this thing. It's up hundreds of percentages. That's huge. So 300% increase in asthma. So the reason that is, and this goes with what I talk about almost every week on the show, if you boil asthma down to its simplest component, it's chronic inflammatory response of the lungs. Just like we talk about a lot of disease processes boil down to chronic inflammatory response in the body. And so our bodies, because of our diet and what we're exposed to these days, is almost the perfect inflammatory response. And so chronic inflammation and how my programs can reduce chronic inflammation, asthma responds very well to those type of anti-inflammatory techniques as well, just like I talk about almost every week. Just because it's happening in a child doesn't mean that it's not the same thing. So asthma responds to these anti-inflammatory programs really, really well. And here's the other thing. These kids feel like they can't breathe. It's horrible for these kids to have an asthma attack. They feel like they're suffocating.
Yeah.
And so new research consistently shows that they respond positive to these type of programs like what we do over there. And the other thing is, if these kids have asthma and that boils down, like I said, to systemic inflammation, and you don't do something to work on the systemic inflammation that these kids have, they're going to lead to other problems and other inflammatory disease processes. Because remember, we always say the first stage of most chronic diseases is systemic inflammation. And so asthma ought to be sort of like this warning sign that, hey, this kid is very inflammatory and something needs to take place with some of these anti-inflammatory programs like we offer to try to help them. And so, kids, you have to think about it. That the average kid falls 200 times learning to walk. Imagine if we fell 200 times over the next 6 months. Do you think we would have some body problems?
Yeah.
And then you have the playing sports and the bike accidents and the terrible diets and the poor posture in school and looking down at their phone all the time for teenagers. All of these things lead up to have body complaints, but we just don't seem to think about that for our kids that much. But all of these sports and jumping on the bed and falling out of the treehouse and wrecking the bicycle and four-wheelers and football and all those things all add up. Kids are people too, and they need help getting their body on the right pathway just like adults do. But we just don't think about that a lot of times for some reason. So I just want to talk about that today. But this week and all next week, we are doing our Children Awareness Week. And so we're going to do complimentary health screenings for the kids in Acadiana that might be having health problems. And so all you have to do is call the office and tell them that you want to be part of our Children's Health Week next week. And we're going to do complimentary, which means no charge, screenings and health evaluations for children in Acadiana that might be having health problems. I don't care if it's asthma, ear infections, ADD, headaches, quote-unquote growing pains, colic, whatever it is. If your child is developing symptoms, you should be concerned about that. And so if you want to come in and
say... Now, you're talking to families with new babies, too, right?
Any age, yeah. Any age. From born all the way up to 18 is included. So, teenagers with health problems or even attention problems, all the way down to, little babies, whatever, that are having health problems. So on our Children's Health Week, if you want to come in...
You what, all you parents that have the babies with the colic... Call so you can get your life back.
Exactly. All colic means is unexplained crying. that's really all it means. It's just the kid is not is uncomfortable. They're hurting somewhere. They're crying. And so we can determine where that is and work on that, and they do really, really well from it. I've
Now, see,
taken.
colic, you would think colic. I always thought because when Blake's now 29,
Yeah,
but when he was born, I mean, he did not stop crying for the first 6 months of his life.
yeah,
I actually went to one of I went to the doctor with him myself.
yeah,
And I said, okay, something is wrong, and he said
right,
nothing's wrong with, but a baby just doesn't cry like that all the time for nothing.
right.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely,
Wouldn't you say?
that's not okay. Yeah, it's not normal.
So,
That's not a normal thing.
I, as a father, I thought colic. I thought that meant something basically in the gut.
Yeah,
You
and,
know,
it
is
gets
it?
it gets associated with that a lot, but really, technically, colic means the baby's crying for an unknown reason.
And, okay, it
And
could be anything.
it could really be anything, but usually it's associated with, well, they have gas or they have
Yeah.
digestive. It usually gets associated with that, but it doesn't always. It's not always the fact.
Okay.
You
So
know,
the bottom line is, if you have a baby that cries all the time and it seems abnormal to you, they should call you.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my little boy.
Lord, I wish I'd have had you 29 years ago.
My little boy, whenever he was a baby, he would go to sleep at a normal hour. He would wake up halfway through the night. He would fuss a little bit because he was hungry. We would feed him. Within 20 minutes after that, he was sleeping again, and he would wake up 6, 7 o'clock the next morning. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And babies aren't supposed to sit and cry all the time. It's just not the way it's supposed to happen. And so that's
I
an
told Deborah, I
indication.
said maybe he doesn't like us.
Yeah, yeah. He wants a new family.
Oh, why these people?
So the truth is, if your child is having something, you want to just take a look at it and use common sense. I mean, does that sound normal for a baby to want to cry all the time? Of course not. That doesn't make any good sense at all. So use your common sense. And so if you want to come in and sit down with me personally, it will be me one-on-one to discuss a possible solution. And we'll do a free screening. We'll check everything out. And then I'll sit down with you and tell you what I found and give you what I think should be done. You don't have to do it. We can shake hands and part as friends if you don't like what I have to say.
Okay.
But if you do like what I have to say, then we'll sit down and we'll figure out a pathway to restore your child's health now. And so it's Children's Health Week all next week at the Bryant Wellness Institutes. And so I work with kids of all ages, from just born with stomach and issues all the way up to teens with with different behavioral and emotional and neurobiological type issues. So come see how the program works. You can call 837-7174 and tell them that you want to be part of our Children's Health Week next week.
Is Natalie going to answer?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, what's the number again?
837-7174.
Okay. Everybody should call that number.
Yeah, parents should really call. And listen, if you just want to get your child screened to make sure they're not developing anything, you can come do that too. We're just opening our doors to these kids to try to help them, because they can't make the decision on their own that they want to come get help.
That's right.
The parent has to do it for themselves. So don't ignore this. If your child is having problems, don't say, "Oh, that's just growing pains," or "Oh, he'll grow out of it." Address it, because these problems could get worse if you don't take care of them yourself. So if your child is suffering, come in. Let me sit down and see if we can help them. If I can't, I won't waste your time. I'll be the first one to let you know that. All right, so it's 837-7174, Children's Health Week, all next week. I'm sure excited about it.
All right, Dr. Kevin, Bryant Wellness Institutes. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
Wellness Wednesday on KTDY.